Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Talking with James video. And in this video, we will not be talking to James. Strange, I know. I did originally talk about this with James, but I didn't end up liking it all that much, and James didn't seem to be too interested. So I knew Hollow, and Hollow has played Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal in particular, so I talked about it with him. Two things before we start. One, the recording kind of messed up at the beginning, so I can't really play the beginning of the conversation, but we will start around where Kamoshida's palace, and then we will go through each individual person in terms of palaces and confidants, or at least all the ones that I did. So yeah, I did cut some of it down so it's not as long as it originally was, but it's still pretty long. It's still, you probably are looking at this video and going, oh man, this is too much for me, and that's completely fair. The second thing I wanted to mention was how I got into Persona 5. I originally got the game, the base game, back at Christmas around 2017, 2018 maybe, when I first got a PS4. I did that, I played it. I stopped around Okumura's palace, and I can see why. Okumura's palace is not that great. And then I tried to play it again when I got a chance through the base game fairly recently, like a few months ago. I got up to Shido's palace, then stopped because I realized that Persona 5 Royal would be coming to Game Pass. So I waited until it came to Game Pass and played it there. And then I played through the whole thing on Game Pass. In a little under a month, I completed it. So yeah, that's my experience with Persona 5. So thanks for Hollow for being a part of this video. It makes talking about this game a lot more fun. And I had a blast kind of doing this. If you like some of these longer, more in-depth videos, tell me about it. If you don't, also let me know. It's all up to you, baby. So yeah, thank you very much.
When I was a teenager, I always had some kind of vague interest in Persona 3 and 4, except that I didn't have the proper consoles to play them. So it was kind of like an outside looking in perspective. I didn't really know what was going on, but I thought the characters looked nice. So when Persona 5 came out, um, there was like maybe a mild interest, but I didn't really care until I saw a couple of my friends that were really into it talk about it, and then it was about like $14, I think. It was super on sale, just the vanilla Persona 5. I bought it for cheap because it was available and because my friends were promoting it, and I was always a little bit curious. Um, and I started playing it, took a break for a while because I only got like to the first palace. And then when quarantine hit in 2019 or whatever, 2020, I don't know. That at that summer, I just absolutely dived in, and my whole summer was me playing Persona 5, and then Persona Royal came out like just after or just as I was finishing Vanilla 5, and I loved it. I absolutely like fell in love with it, and that's what I was doing like every day for like a whole summer. And then I immediately started playing Persona 5 Royal. Um, and I also really like Royal, and I think that in a lot of ways Persona 5 Royal is better. So most of my experience is strictly with Persona 5. I consider it one of my top 3 favorite games. And I've played a little bit of 4. I didn't like the dungeon crawling as much, but I have a lot of things to do still with 4, and that was on my PS3, but unfortunately, I don't have my PS3 on me anymore, so I'm waiting until I'm in a more financially stable situation so that I can play Persona 3 and 4 on my PlayStation.
Anyway, let's
What's
just.
up?
I have your audio, but not mine for a second, and then I realized I wait. Do I? Oh no, OBS. I hate you. Sorry. Anyway, okay, we'll just have to go off of that. But basically, I already said that the intro was good. Whatever. I'll fix this later. I'll fix it later. It's not going to stop us. Okay.
Okay.
Um. So yeah, I basically agree. Ryuji's awakening to his persona, I think, is really good. On and Ryuji in particular, I think are one of the strongest awakenings to their personas in the game, because I think it both gives them reason for as a character. Ryuji in particular.
Yeah.
Ryuji when uh, Ryuji's like idea of his like being in track, and then Kamoshida was there too, and then Kamoshida like attacked him and hurt his knee really badly, and even though the school called it self-defense, but it really wasn't. On using her persona to kind of awaken to the fact that Kamoshida is just kind of like a person obsessed with lust. It gives them reason for them to really stay in these palaces and to be connected to these palaces rulers, which some of these people don't quite connect to the palaces rulers when they awaken to their personas. But I think that Ryuji and An in particular are really strong. And by the way, I do really love Ryuji as well. Ryuji's he's really great in this game. He's my favorite. He's actually one of my favorite confidants in the game, not just because of gameplay, but because of story as well. And it's interesting to see that a lot of people don't like Ryuji in Japan because he's like this outsider who's got the blonde hair, is kind of rebellious, even though, like you said, it's not inherently his fault for getting into trouble. So I think that these both Ryuji and En both give strong reason for them as characters, but it also sets up their characters and confidants extremely well.
Yeah. I've always vibed with them super well, and I do want to mention that I think my favorite or part or perks of the Confidants has got to be Ryuji's ability to just run past, like literally just run into people and then just steal their items and XP so long as you're like a certain level above them. I flew, and I mean flew through Maruki's palace because I was so over leveled that I was just running through all of the enemies and taking their shit, and all I had to do was fight like the mini bosses and the boss.
I know, right? It's crazy. We'll get to the confidants later, but like it's funny because when I played the base game, and then I got into that ability. The first time I realized that was when I was in Mementos, and I tried to hit it, and I was like, okay, I'm mentally prepared for this battle. I clicked on it, ambushed them, and they just kind of fell over, and I collected a mask, and I was like, wait a second, what? And then I realized, oh, so this is an ability in the game. So I started playing Persona 5 Royal, and I maxed out as Confidant, right? And then I clicked it, like when I was back in Mementos or one of the palaces, and I was like, hey, I didn't immediately get them. So that's an understandable change. Thank God, they didn't take the most broken ability in the game. And then I looked it up, and it was like, no, you have to hold RT. And I was like, wait a second, no, no. And then it said, not only is it broken in the original game, but it's even worse in Royal, where you can just run through enemies, get their personas, their money, and experience all at once. Why would they take the most broken mechanic in the game and make it even more broken?
I honestly love it, and I feel like original Persona fans and Shin Megami Tensei fans might hate me for it, but I don't give a shit. This is a game that is hundreds of hours long, and a lot of times people aren't going to know about this ability for a while, and if you know about it, you're probably going to go gravitate towards leveling up Ryuji first. And if you're not spending the time to level up, you're probably going to stay under leveled, so you're not going to be able to actually fight these guys anyway. Or sorry, do that ability on them anyway. You have to be like a couple levels above them to even do it, right? So according to me, like you're gonna get into thousands of fights, and I just don't see the appeal in doing all of them when I already am probably gonna be doing hundreds that I can't avoid anyway. So especially like if you understand how to use this ability to like the best that you can, you've probably already played this game anyway. So if anything, it's just a time saver, and I I just love the ability. Honestly, I think that like it it's not really a get good thing for me because of how you can exploit it is probably only like under the guidelines that you are intending on exploiting it, which I do. So
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I honestly really I like parts of it. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit too lazy at times. But honestly, I mean it's not the worst ability. I would say it's not the absolute worst you can do. So I didn't mind that. But the Kamoshida's palace is overall pretty easy, which is good because it's You know, it's simply you're going through the motions, and it's trying to teach you the base mechanics. The puzzles are even simple, but I really enjoy the art style and theme of this palace, like you were saying earlier about the story of Kamoshida being ruled by lust and ego, and even in the court, it's like his holy place where he sets up his own little church, and he drives a girl onto suicide, and he completely forgot her name. He's like one of the he's like just pure evil in every sense, and I guess that's what makes the character so appealing, especially for the first palace. You know.
Yeah, and I think that the ties that On and Ryuji have to him really flesh that out, and the fact that Joker is directly interacting him with him in a lot of ways is also very good.
Yep, I like that the fact that even when you're in the school, Kamoshida will come up to you, and he'll like he'll say, "Oh, it doesn't matter, you'll be gone anyway," or he's like taunting you in the at the beginning of school and whatever. It's like he is the perfect hateable villain. Like
Yeah.
it works perfectly for the first palace and the first person. It kind of sets up the whole game really well. So yeah, but saying that, what did you think of the Kamoshida boss fight?
Um, it's fine. Like, I don't feel like I've ever taken anything like crazy away from it. If I'm correct, I believe that he brings in these his manifestations of On and the volleyball girl.
Shiho.
Um, Shiho, right. I kept wanting to call her Shido. I'm like, no, that's Mr. Worldwide. That's the wrong one. But he brings in Shido and On, but just like puts, I think, On in his drink, like he's holding a drink, but like she's just stiff and like moves around it like a straw would, and I've always found that like hilarious.
I know, right? He just turns into like he just has this like weird giant tongue. I love the fact that when you try and send people to knock his crown down, you can't send On because he keeps staring at On for some reason. It's like it's so bizarre, man.
I think that it's really accurate to his character. He's blinded by everything else, and he's driven by lust, so of course he's staring at the girl that he's trying to have sex with. And I think that that shows how he feels in real life too. He doesn't give two shits about how she feels, and he obviously can't read her body language. She's very uncomfortable, and when she turns him down, it's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do this if you don't get with me. Like, he has no sense of understanding what he's doing to this girl and how that would ever drive a girl away from him. There's just an absolute block there. Um, and that's unfortunate to see too, because the entirety of the school is essentially like literally slut shaming On for being seen around Kamoshida instead of holding an adult man accountable for preying on a teenager. But you
Exactly,
know,
yeah. Japanese
um,
society is really something.
I also like the legs that he eats that are just like women's legs. Like, I
Yeah.
think that
There's
the
just like asses and like legs, and then he
yeah.
just eats the legs. And I'm sitting here like, oh my god, this is a whole new level of messed up.
You also see this kind of mindset in Kawakami, which this might have been intentional, but I also fucking hate Kawakami, and I feel like she never really like came back from this, but maybe I don't know, maybe I didn't pay enough attention, but she projects that onto Ryuji. So Ryuji is also, this child got into this scuffle with this teacher. We're not going to ask like why this happened or hold the teacher accountable for beating the shit out of the child, even if the child started it. It's just the child's fault, and then the entire school is going to consistently. Kawakami tells Joker to his face, stay away from that kid. And I'm sitting here like, you are a teacher. You are an authority figure and someone that these children should be looking up to. And you fully are taking like another adult man's side when like you know that probably something fucked up happened there. Like, this entire school has including the adults, has the perspective of not being able to see these problems from these children's eyes, and Kamoshida has it the worst.
I agree, and I think a lot of this comes down to like the cultural differences between Japan and America, because like America has this whole idea of individualism. Like the Western world fairly has an idea of being individual. Even Germany, to a respect, has a version of individualism in its body, even though they've done some group related things. But the East is like very controlled. Like, how are you with the group? You need to be with the group. You need to have the same values as the group. You need to not stand out from the crowd. You need to be like all the others, right? It's just like I guess that's just a part of how Japanese society is, and it's really cool for them to call out. They even took a chance on certain characters that they probably knew would be disliked, but end up feeling more individualistic, making this game more special. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
so, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's also seen in the fact that she is quite literally a foreigner. I've seen a video breakdown of her that was actually talking about how in a lot of schools it is even, I believe, still to this day required that the girls wear their hair a certain way, and sometimes in some school that they dye their hair black even if it is not their natural hair color. And so even though some people might be, I feel like some people's initial reaction to On might be all like, why does everyone hate her if she's so pretty? But like in Japanese society, not being Japanese can be a really big problem sometimes. They got some xenophobia over there.
Yeah,
And
I
she is
know,
part
right?
Japanese even, but like it's still like something to a point where nobody feels like they can be around her because some people think like either that she thinks that she's too good for them or that she's sleeping with everyone or she's a foreigner. While Ryuji is a more basic, he dyes his hair and wears different clothes. Why would you do that unless you want attention? You're an asshole. You know, he causes problems.
I tried to face Kamoshida, right? And
Yep.
I was playing against him. Right, I think I even have this recorded. I was fighting him, and then I sent out Ryuji, I think, to take care of the little crown to knock him off. Like the base game, and then like Morgana said, "Oh no, we're not distracting enough. We aren't doing enough damage." And I was like, "Damage? Oh, I'll show you damage." Is a Nagino Okumi Pikaro by the mystical truths. Boom, shh. Whole boss fight finished.
I said Morgana because like it's my brain is very much like, aha, he's like really like the Phantom Thief of Phantom Thieves for some reason. I'm like, he's got little like kitty mitts, he can go steal the crown, so I sent off Morgana like every time that I've played.
Next one up is the Madarame's Castle. His palace is pretty interesting. I like the painting puzzles. I think those are pretty good. But I think in terms of story, I don't think it's as good per se as Kamoshida's palace. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, and that's not to say that Madarame is by any means bad. I think that the closer of a connection that the bad guys have to, first off, their respective confidant that you're gaining at that point, but also the Joker makes them a bit stronger. So there's a very kind of like outside looking in perspective to Madarame, which might not feel as intimate as Kamoshida's, for example. But I still think that he's done pretty well, and I do think that his palace is very pretty. And has some neat ideas with some of the painting stuff. And none of it really seems to overstay its welcome for too long, which is very good, as well as like the lasers and stuff like that. It being a museum, I really like that a lot of these palaces bring out actual features of how these people view themselves, as well as like if that palace is this thing, then there are these things in that palace that represent what that building is, which is pretty good, I think. I really like Yusuke, but mostly that's just because he's weird. I
True, based. Oh my
um
god, that's so true. Actually, Yusuke's awakening is actually one of my favorite awakenings in the game. Because it feels more personal to him than anybody else. Like,
yeah,
because like his whole life he's been under Madarame, right? He dedicates his whole life to just trying to, appease him because he thinks that he owes him everything. And to see him turn against that is like a huge step in his development. So that's why his awakening is just so damn good.
yeah, it's someone having to turn on someone that they trust because they know that that person is doing something bad. And for a while, you really see that denial in Yusuke because what other choice does he have? He doesn't have a home. This is his father figure and someone who has taught him the the very basis of his most favorable hobby and even a potential career choice. He has to put everything on the line to define Madarame, and that really is bold of him. I also I also really like the part where they have On come in wearing like 5,000 layers of clothes so that they can sneak in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so weird. Like the whole nude painting thing was poor on.
Yeah,
She just wanted to be a model. She didn't want to do a nude painting.
yeah. And it's interesting because like you don't ever think like that Yusuke is necessarily a pervert. He's just really passionate about art and doesn't always seem to understand social cues. That's something that I love about him. But I also do want to mention like strictly this Sayuri and how the Sayuri is also like a thing in the palace, but it's also a part of like it for one it relates back to Yusuke. It relates back to how Madarame is stealing people's art and how Madarame like quite literally killed Yusuke's mom or whatever. Um, but also the fact that that starts hanging in Leblon from that point forward, and how there was a missing piece of it, and you see that that was the baby. That's Yusuke. I think that a lot of that lore being built around that picture alone, and then how that picture stays and remains in Leblon from that point forward, and how it's discussed between strictly Yusuke and Sojiro. I think that that is one of the strongest points of this section of the game, honestly.
I believe so too, honestly. Like every time you pass it and it feels like, it's a reminder of what Yusuke kind of went through and his
Yeah,
story, It's something to visually come back to when looking at LeBlanc. Even at certain points in the story, Yusuke comes back to LeBlanc just to see the painting again. And I think that's a really cool humanizing detail of Yusuke, honestly.
absolutely.
So the next one up is Kaneshiro's palace. What do you think about the good old Kaneshiro?
I'm not saying that they necessarily like could have or should have done this some other way or whatever, but like I think that it's a little bit harder to feel this kind of connection between Kaneshiro and Makoto in comparison to Ryuji and Anan, Kamoshida and Madarame and Yusuke, obviously. But especially on this recent replay, I have been paying a little bit more attention to Makoto specifically and realizing that there still are strengths in this part. I also really just I like the design of the bank. I think that it's fun. Like I said, it can be hard to find that like emotional connection between strictly Makoto and Kaneshiro, and that makes Kaneshiro seem like one of the weaker villains in general. But I think that for Makoto, there is still a lot to be said about the fact that these adults are once again projecting onto these children, expecting them to handle situations that are not a child's responsibility. Makoto, especially my favorite character, Principal Kabayakawa, just the best character, is just always showing up and asking Makoto to essentially do things for him. I can't think of the word, but it's when you really expect someone who is not an adult to be an adult, right? And I think that that is projected onto Makoto a lot, and she's very lonely because of it. And that shows through that her responsibility is I need to take care of this entire school. And then it's suddenly we need to it's hey, teenager, can you deal with the mafia? So
Yeah, I know, right? Like, but the principal is just like, oh shoot, I don't know how to take care of the mafia boss. Let's have this weird teenage president classmate girl. She can do it. Yeah, totally.
and I think that there are a lot of expectations. So like obviously like we see that the group's reaction to Makoto at first is, well, she's suspicious and she's in our business even though she shouldn't be, because she's this like know-it-all fucking girl who thinks that she understands us, when like she's probably got her life together and all that, which she doesn't. She may like she's the character who is very smart and very organized in a sense, but is also collapsing on the inside because of the expectations. And we've seen that kind of character in media before several times, but I still think it's done really well with Makoto, especially because from a Japanese perspective, there is a lot of expectation that is put onto these schools to maintain a certain public reputation. And that goes onto the shoulders of the students. And the better that you get at school, sometimes that means the worse that these pressures are going to be on your shoulders. And I think that Makoto quite literally having to deal with the mafia is kind of a quite literally pressing expectations onto these children that are so unreasonable that it's absurd, and expecting them to live up to that. Um, so that whole section, I guess, is about expectations, but I think that that is a lot stronger for Makoto specifically than it is for Kaneshiro, as a villain, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right about saying connecting this to expectations, and I think the boss fight in particular kind of reinforces the themes about money and generally like how self controlling this guy is, and Makoto kind of standing up for herself. In terms of like story, I think Makoto's awakening is quite good as well. It just doesn't connect to the villain, but it's still like it's a good awakening because we've seen this character kind of get pushed around a lot. We even see the principal kind of force her into spying on our main group, you know, Joker and the others,
Yeah.
and forced her into this scenario. And her finally standing up for herself is like a really good moment for her character. And I think this whole, you're right, it's really about expectations because especially in Japan, expectations are so high when you're in school. It's important that you do all your grades, that you do like it's very different from American society because in American society, you know, a lot of people don't tend to care a lot about education. Like there's still obviously, you know, people that care and parents do focus on it, but it's not like as big as it is in Japan where or in Japan it's you know, especially in Eastern countries in particular. So we tend to think of it in a different way. But yeah, although I liked, I thought the main puzzle with the notepads was a bit annoying, because you had to like go through one area, um, and then you had to find each individual piggy bank to like then get only one letter, and then you had to go all the way. That part was a little bit annoying, and the vault part I don't think looks as good as the intro to the bank. But other than that, I say Kaneshiro is like an okay palace. I wouldn't say he's the best, but he's definitely okay. You know.
Yeah, I don't think he's the best either. I didn't mind the puzzles as much, but it's more like a okay, I understand what I'm doing. I just need to go around, get all these papers, wipe the palace clean, and then I can worry about the puzzle, which is better than being presented with like a situation that where you can't have all the information just in your hands, I guess. Something that's baffling to me still, and maybe I'm just like way too liberal or something, but I think it's a little bit absurd that Japanese schools like quite literally show everybody's score to everyone at once on tests. It is this public almost competition that is it's thrust upon all these children like in view of all the other children and the adults as well. It is like a public thing if you are failing at school. And I think that that reflects onto Makoto because being really good at school is also that very kind of public thing where everyone has their eyes on you because it's never like you said about America, it's a lot more individual, which like we have our problems with the school system, but I think that you see those kinds of expectations in certain things like what those schools do by like showing tests to like everyone all at once and showing your ranking on them and everything like that. I think like really puts the expectations on your shoulders, and I think that she's kind of symbolic of that.
Yeah, like when you talk about the fact that you know they show each other's scores, I think that kind of reminds me of like a sport almost. Like they're all
Yeah.
trying to compete just to get that high score. When in reality, it should be focused on individual like learning of like trying to get a better education for these kids rather than just oh let's see who can make it to the finish line and do the best. You know.
Yeah.
So the next one up is actually a palace that I think I personally really like, and that is Futaba's palace. The first thing that I want to mention in terms of story, I think it's way better than Kanashiro's because like the whole idea behind this palace is like self hatred and not letting it control you, like trying not to let you know the other things in life control how you see stress and how you view yourself and how other traumas you know can affect you. It's a really interesting look of like the individual, you know, obviously for the this is the palace in terms of gameplay where newer players are going to get you know a little bit beat around a little bit because this is where like the difficulty more so kicks in versus any of the other bosses. And I really like this palace's design. It's so unique. It's basically like Egypt but like has super tech and stuff. It's like this really creative mix between two different ideas. But what did you think of this palace?
So I just want to mention that the palace kind of reminds me of this hotel in Las Vegas called the Luxor that is quite literally shaped like a pyramid. And I remember going there when I was about 14 or 15 and staying the night one night with my dad and my brother. And I just had such a good time. And there's this entire like plaza in the middle of it that has like these stores and vendors and stuff like that. And of course, like casinos. But walking around getting like a burger with my family, I'm just looking up and seeing these diagonal rooms because it was slanted. Like it was a huge pyramid, and it just kind of reminds me of that, which I really like. I just like that vibe. But anyway, in terms of like the actual like game, Futaba is sort of like an alien. She is very much someone who is not completely integrated in society. But she's very brilliant and does a lot of things from the background, and that also plays into how she acts in the actual group. She is not an active fighter, but she is managing things from the background, and she flies around in a little spaceship. And there's this whole conspiracy theory about how aliens made the pyramids, and I think that that's really good for her. I think that's just really fun in general. When it comes down to her being related to Sojiro, that is something that caught me off guard when I first played. I don't think I like completely expected that, and I think that that was really humanizing for Sojiro in a way. And I also think that it it really helps bring like the dynamic between her and him and Joker together a lot more. And makes it easier for someone who has a lot of social issues to more easily spend her time somewhere like LeBlanc, for example, because that's her dad's place. I think that it's also really cool that in some ways, for one, it's a change of pace because it is her palace that she is asking you to go into, for one, which really like shakes up the game and makes gives you a breath of fresh air in terms of what you're doing. But also, it seems to be a little bit of a callback to the original series, at least like more strictly Persona 4, because that's my knowledge of the series for the most part, and confronting your inner self rather than confronting someone else's inner self. And I think that that's really cool. I also really like Futaba's palace. And that does seem to be where the difficulty does rack up a bit, especially in the fight against her flying mother thing. But
Yeah, that was a very strange choice. Why is she like a mix between a tiger and like a real human? It's very strange.
I'm assuming it's based on the Sphinx, but um, I just yeah I think that that's like that whole section is a lot of fun. I also really like the part where they're trying to figure out who Futaba is, and even if her whole like measured or whatever she's doing is probably a little bit unrealistic, I still think it's fun when they go and try and have these conversations with her, and she's a really big mystery for a while, and you really want to know who she is because you like Sojiro, so you're like, who is this person that Sojiro's got locked up, and why is she locked up? Why does she want us to do this? Who is she, and why is she hurting? You know, and finding that out as you do her palace, I think is really good and intimate for her, and does a good job setting her up. I really like Futaba in general, and I think that there's a lot of fun to be had with her. And when they go into Sojiro's house and are looking around for her, and she ends up like scaring them, and the whole gang is like screaming and clinging onto each other. It's just like a Scooby Doo moment almost, and I really like
Yeah,
that.
it does kind of remind me of Scooby Doo. That's perfect. That's the perfect analogy for this.
Yeah, I really like that palace. I think it's really good.
But now let's get to everyone's favorite palace. It is Okumura's palace. Boy, oh boy, I have some words with this palace. So basically, welcome to the worst palace in the game.
Yeah.
I do not like this palace at all. First off, the style makes no sense. Everything makes sense from like a standpoint. Kaneshiro's thinks other has money. It's a bank. Makes sense. Madarame sees himself as an artist. It's a museum. Kamoshida sees himself as a ruler. It's a castle. Okumura, a businessman. Space, and it's like okay. Obviously, there's that part. Then there's the puzzle part. I hated, and I mean hated, the little stupid algebra puzzle, like the A and the Z and the alpha and the, oh my god. If
Oh
you
yeah.
mess that up, you have to start all over again. You have to like go all the way back around and start doing it again. The other thing that kind of sucks about this palace is Haru. I think that Haru is not a strong character in this game, and that's not necessarily her fault. It's mostly because Akumura's palace is like, you know what? Instead of focusing on the daughter of Okumura, let's focus on Morgana. Yeah, let's
Yep.
go with Morgana's arc instead. His arc kind of comes out of nowhere, and I feel like Morgana is like he's a cool character, sure, but I don't think Morgana is supposed to take up that much screen time. He's a funny wahoo cat that wants to be human. Why can't we just let him stay that way? He doesn't need to be super deep either. And besides, you can't even unlock his confidant like going through a separate story. You just go through the main story, and then you unlock it naturally. So the villain, just in general, kind of overall, I just didn't like Okumura. I think Okumura is just, he's not as in depth or as hateable as some of the others. He's just kind of generic food man. And then the music, I strongly dislike the music in this palace as well. It's like dun 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 dun, and it gets really repetitive after a while. And thank God it's better in Royal, because in the base game I remember it being just a nightmare because there was like little to no weaknesses and everything was blocked. It was super interesting. So yeah, that's my rant about Akumura's palace. It's not a good palace. I do not like it. What did you think?
So on a lot of things, I agree with you. I think that I'd like to give you a new perspective in Morgana specifically. But I do think that focusing on Morgana does make it so that we get less focus on Haru, and that's a shame. I think that out of all of the Phantom Thieves, Haru is the one that I vibe with definitely the least. The reason that I keep remembering that Haru exists is because my friend Ryan really likes her design and thinks that she's really cute. But as a character, I think that unfortunately she's kind of in the background. And in vanilla Persona, she's introduced really late, so it can be hard for some people to get that confidant with her, especially if you're focusing on Futaba. And I chose Futaba because I think she's a better character. So a lot of times I have to choose between the two of them, and that's kind of unfortunate. I think that the palace itself in the original, it wasn't great, and then the boss fight sucked. And then in Royal, I think that the palace for the most part was all right. I think that the earlier on stages of the palace are fine. But that part with the alpha and all that and the flying around, that part sucks. And then the boss, I also think I hated it in Royal. I thought that it was worse in Royal. If you don't specifically have Haru and make sure that Joker has these overwhelming side attacks, you're fucked. And I just don't like the time in that. I feel like it's not really bad in theory, but I feel like it's just an extremely annoying fight that I spent 3 hours doing over and over again, almost killing him, and then it was like, well, you're out of time. So this is not me speaking in certainty. This is me maybe trying to find a reason as to why they would do a spaceport. I mean, for one, it has to do with the whole burger joint thing that they have going on, but why they created this, so obviously it has to have some tie to the character anyway. I almost wonder if it's being completely out of the realm of actual society. You're out in space with this crazy technology, and in real life this is this crazy rich man who doesn't seem to have a grasp on actual human connection at all, with a shit ton of money. So maybe that's what the spaceport represents. I'm not quite sure. For the most part, I can vibe with its aesthetics just fine, but I do not think it's as strong as any of the other palaces. For Morgana specifically, and maybe this should have been done at a different point so that we could focus more on Haru, because I think I think that would have benefited her, obviously. I think that Morgana specifically, he went overboard a couple of times, obviously. But I do think that the more that I play Persona, the more that I get to appreciate Morgana. I think that I relate to him in some way or something like that, and this is going to sound weird. It's more of a subconscious thing. But he is someone who has the intellect and thought of a human being, as well as the desires, for the most part, of a human being. He has this huge crush on, and in some playthroughs, he has to sit there and watch as Joker gets to get with the girl that he likes, because he never had a chance with her because he's a cat.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's a really annoying thing for poor Morgana. I mean, just imagine just getting cucked because you're a cat.
Yeah, she doesn't even seem to completely they love him and they value him, obviously. But the group, especially Ryuji, doesn't always seem to completely take Morgana seriously, despite the fact that he seems to be someone who is very much always trying to do work for the sake of the group. I remember, for example, I was playing a couple weeks ago, and it was raining outside, and Morgana was like, "Don't worry, I packed your umbrella because I figured you might have forgotten it or something. I know that if you don't have money for the train station, Morgana forks over some money that he's been saving for you."
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. How did this cat somehow just find some yen in his... And where is he keeping it? Just in his backpack or in his pocket? I don't know.
I'm assuming. I don't know, but Morgana does a lot of work for the group, and I feel like that can have moments where, like, yeah, he can be a bitch sometimes, but like I feel like sometimes that is undermined by the fact that he is quite literally a cat, and he seems to want to have fun and to enjoy things with the group, but he has to be shoved inside a bag all day and watch. You get to go out and play darts with your friends. You get to have conversations, and he has to hide away from all that. And he's almost like an actual other teenager who wants to have a teenage experience, but he can't because he's a cat, and they keep rubbing that in his face. And I think that that is almost terrifying and really sad. And I think that the fact that he snapped, even if it could have been done better, I think actually was inevitable, because I feel like he I feel like he feels a little bit underappreciated, which, like, they do appreciate him. They love him. But also, like, it's really hard to take someone like that seriously for them. But he's literally on the same intellect level of his peers, but he cannot participate in any of the things that a human can. And it will be like that for the rest of his life. And he brings that up a lot because it obviously brings him a lot of sadness. And I think that especially him butting heads with Ryuji, he can be a dick to Ryuji, but Ryuji also oftentimes doesn't take him seriously. And I feel like that's just hard, and that would make anyone crack. And I think that Morgana is, on surface level, he seems like a mascot, and maybe that's what like Teddy and the fucking dog are for Persona 3 and 4. I don't know. I haven't played a whole lot of them. Teddy was kind of just there when I played Persona 4, but I didn't get very far. But Morgana, to me, he's a character. He's a part of the group, and he has thoughts and feelings, and he has insecurities. And I think that they follow through with that in Royal as well. And I think that the fact that Morgana had that breakdown because of that, even if it was overboard in a couple ways, even if it were not in like the best part of the game, I don't think that it was out of nowhere if you think about how someone would feel in that position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I get that perspective, honestly, completely now more than, than I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's generally like, it feels a bit coming out of nowhere, and it feels like it could be, built up a bit more and a bit better. I just mostly think in particular that, I get it that Morgana gets screwed over and he doesn't have like the best life, but I feel like, Haru should be the focus when it comes to, especially, well, it's not even that Haru has to be the focus. I feel like Haru can get attention without Morgana having attention too. Like Ryuji and An both got attention in the first palace, and it didn't feel like one was overstating the other, right? But it feels like in Okumura's palace, Morgana completely takes control and takes over versus Haru.
Yep.
I did like the whole beauty thief thing, but it's a bit hard to kind of, I don't know. It's hard to kind of get on board when Morgana kind of ends up, kind of throwing a temper tantrum and running off, and going into Mementos where you have to run around and go find the cars. Like, look, there's Morgana. Yeah. Okay, can't wait. But
Yeah.
I can definitely see why they would give him more depth.
Yeah, I think that the timing and the way that it overshadowed Haru did hurt her character, and I absolutely agree with that. I think that one of the biggest like impactful parts of Okumura's palace is the ending when Akechi kills him. Not anything like for Yusuke's, for example, it's Yusuke's awakening and his connection to the Sayuri, right? In Haru's palace, the thing that you take away from that is like, oh, well, who killed Okumura? I feel like that's kind of what left a more long-lasting effect, and I think that says a lot about how, unfortunately, she's kind of the one who has done the dirtiest.
Alrighty. That means we get to the next palace, Sayuri's palace. Oh boy, I actually like this palace a lot. I think first of all, I think the music is fantastic. They actually have lyrics this time around, which I think is super cool. I think this palace just in general has so much personality when it comes to like the casinos and even the back rooms, and getting hired to like the special VIP rooms. There's little like bullshit enemies you don't have to deal with. Obviously Akechi, you finally get to play Akechi in this part of the palace, which I love Akechi. Akechi is one of my favorite characters, honestly. I love the fact that he proves himself time and again in this palace. Like even at the end, Akechi like uses another card that he's been using over time in secret, and then ends up to, be able to actually fight the boss. Sayori is also a pretty decent villain. I wouldn't say that she's great, but she's definitely cool. I say she's not like takes away, because I think everything in this palace, points her to being really good, especially when Makoto's there and she has to kind of deal with her sister kind of becoming this terrible person. The only thing that I think I dislike about this palace is the ending being a bit weird. I think that the how it was executed was way overly complicated. I'm talking about the whole death scene where Ketchy kills Joker. I think the lengths that they go through is kind of insane. They it's like, oh, we have to set up a room that looks exactly like this in the real world. And then we have to find some version of like a shadow Joker, and then make sure he kills him at that point in time, and hopefully Akechi doesn't notice. And when all the other guards are coming in and out, even though like how would the guards exist? I don't know. It seems like a lot of steps just to kind of pull off this great scheme, which I don't mind like big overcomplicated plans, but I think it's kind of it's kind of hard to follow, especially when the game's like, okay, I should ask Futaba how she did it later. Like that interrupts kind of the cutscene about it just to get even more depth and stuff to the actual twist. But I did like how they found out how Akechi, ends up proving himself. I mean, not approves himself, but how he exposes himself with the pancakes line. I've seen a meme and it works so well. And Akechi goes up to them and is like, did I hear anything about delicious pancakes? And then his hair turns red, and then Joker's hair turns blue, dun dun dun, and then the Death Note theme plays.
Oh yeah.
That meme is perfect. I think it works so well for that scenario. But what do you think of Sai-san's palace?
Okay, so a couple things. First off, I noticed that a couple times you called her Sayori, but that is the Yusuke's mom's painting. It's just Sai.
Oh, it's Sai.
Yeah.
Sai-san. Sorry.
No, it's good. And I also there's this meme that I love that is this whole interaction between the boneless pizza, like the boneless pizza video.
Yeah.
It's that, but it's Akechi and Ryuji. And so you've got Ryuji like, hey, can I get a boneless pizza? And Akechi being like, dickhead, there's no such thing as a boneless pizza. Like just absolutely going insane.
Oh.
Her palace is one of, if not my favorite palace. Also, you're right about the music. It slaps. I love the music. I also like casinos. I mean, I brought one up earlier. I haven't done a lot of gambling, but I just like casinos. But that's because I've been to Vegas a few times and just had some fun. So I think that the whole vibe of that is great. And also, Sai's really hot, and her shadow version is like really, really hot. I'm just gonna like straight up say it. They designed her well, though. I think from her job position, for one, it helps a little bit with Makoto's development, especially since Kaneshiro was kind of like not really great in relationship to Makoto. It helps that Sai specifically knows someone in your group and is like a sister of them. And also the fact that she works a lot with Akechi, and then you've got Akechi there for his own partner's palace. I think being able to use Akechi is great because I love Akechi and I'd do anything for him, despite the fact he's fucking insane.
Same.
Yeah. I don't know. I just really like the palace. I like all the gambling, the fun, the cards, the whole vibe. And I think that her perspective, especially working in the profession that she does, and the way that she talks to Makoto, I think to her, life really is a gamble in a sense, and she is trying to play her cards the best that she can, especially in essentially forcing Makoto to do certain things in order to keep her reputation and her life in order. She wants the best for Makoto, but that can come in an overbearing way, which comes back to like Makoto's arc for one, but also represents how Sai's felt herself, and how she's projecting. And I think that it's clear that she's not a bad person, but she plays a pivotal role in this. And I think that it's important that they went through her, especially with all this interrogating stuff that's going on and how she ends up helping out the Phantom Thieves. I think that she's like a somewhat dynamic character because of that. I Honestly, like, there's not a whole lot I could give to this palace, except for praise for the most part. I just think that it's really freaking good.
I think so as well. It's one of my favorite palaces in the game. I think it's like for me at least, it's the second best. Obviously, I think the last palace is the best, but just in
That's fair.
general, I really like her. I also think that, like, this may be a hot take, but I also think she's like the least evil or like the least problematic because she's still operating under the law. She's still like technically a good person.
Mhm.
She just sees life indifferently. Versus Dr. Maruki. I think Dr. Maruki isn't like evil in the typical sense, but I think that yeah, we'll get to him when we get to Dr. Maruki. But I think that
Yeah,
she seems like she has good intent, especially when it comes to
yeah,
Makoto in particular. She's just a bit forceful in how she does it, and you can tell that the stress of her job is kind of like weighing on her, especially with the director, putting pressure
yeah.
on her in particular. In the same way the principal puts pressure on Makoto. Isn't that strange? Anyway.
Parallels, man. It's
Yeah.
great.
Storytelling. We know what that is. Yeah.
Hey,
But yeah, I think that this is a great palace. I think the whole gambling aesthetic and the fact that this ties back around to the beginning of the game, I think also, proves itself as quite well. So the next thing is obviously Shido's palace. I think that in some ways it's a bit of a downgrade compared to Sai's palace, but multiple mini bosses are in this palace, which I thought was a bit annoying at first, but they have weaknesses. They're not super hard to kill, so I think that the overall idea behind it is pretty good. The comeback in the story was, well handled. Um, in terms of like them having to go against such a great force. The ship seems a little bit one note, but I kind of get the idea behind it. I hated the rat puzzles. I don't know why, but they were like, "Oh yeah, let's put them as rats." And like the first two times, it's like funny, but after a while, it's just like use the rats to get through here, and then use the rats to do this and that, and then you have to loop all the way around. And I thought that was a bit of a kind of a waste of time somewhat, but I did think it's kind of cute. I liked how in Royal you can like get the cheese. That's kind of cute. I thought that was funny. Shido's boss fight is long and tough. Like that boss goes through so many different stages. There's
Mhm.
obviously like the one where you fight him on the lion, then he transforms into the flying version or bigger form of that, and then he like becomes a pyramid, and then he's like, no, I'm not done yet. So he like takes his shirt off, and then he's like, attached to these like little things or whatever. Then he turns red, and then he's like, no, I'm still not done yet. So he turns himself into one-on-one v's jokers. So I mean, everything feels wrapped up story wise. I feel like if the story ended here, I think it would still be pretty good because everything feels properly ended. But the thing is that, this obviously isn't the end of the story. It's like, oh, you think that this is Shido's Palace is the end? Nope, that's not. Actually, you need to go back into Mementos. Then do you think that's the end? Nope, you gotta go and fight God. And then it's like, okay, is that the end? And it's like, no, you have to go fight Dr. Maruki. It's like, okay, so you fight Dr. Maruki, you win. And then it's like, well, actually, you have to wait through like 4 to 5 hours of cutscenes. Then you actually finish the game. So like, I felt like this game was never gonna end, honestly. But either way, I thought Shido's Palace was pretty good in terms of gameplay. Not as good story wise, but in terms of like the ending of it, it wrapped up everything super well, and how Joker contrast off of Shido is also really cool. So, what do you think?
I think that Shido's palace really does feel like the pinnacle of everything that's happened so far. His ship, I think, is really cool. For one, I really like the song that plays on the ship, Arc or whatever it's called, and I also really like that this ship is quite literally barreling through Japan. He is just actively just on this non-stop path, driving down like through all the skyscrapers and everything. It shows how big his aspirations are and how big of an impact he has, I think. And also like the cruise ship is so wealthy and such like a representation of this kind of like lifestyle, I think. It really feels like there's a lot going on in the ship, but since it is kind of the last human, but we're not counting Maruki because royal, but the last like human boss essentially. It really does feel like this sort of pinnacle because of how big everything is. The mice didn't really bother me a whole bunch. Maybe that's something that needs a replay for me to really like have another perspective on. But when I when I did play it originally, it's funny because at the time I owned a rat. So like
Oh, that
seeing
works
like
out
yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah, so seeing like my cage like across from the TV and seeing his name was Hunkules, by the way. So seeing Hunk just like stare at the screen while there's rats on the screen was just like great, honestly.
you
Um
got that rat representation. Nice.
yeah. Obviously, like pride is oftentimes attributed to the lion and then cowardice to the mouse, or at least the little guy or an underdog to the mouse. So I'm assuming they used it as a metaphor. Like, I mean, they flat out say it's like a way of like him thinking that everyone is underneath him and practically can't touch him. Um, which I think that that's like fun at least. Like, if not overstaying its welcome, I think that it's fun in theory. I also really like the fight with Akechi and how Akechi turns around and how he tries to be a better person. I thought that was a lot of fun, and it also shows that you're entering the like final stages and stuff like that, and really motivates you to go after Shido, if not for your sake and everyone else's sake, then even for Akechi's sake, because as bad as he was a victim and he sacrificed himself so that you could get there. And then the fight against Shido, yeah, I had a lot of parts. I've never had too much trouble with it, luckily. Shido is just the douchebag character that has a lot of power and take him off that throne. So I mean, it served its purpose for me. I like the palace a decent amount. If not, it's just there's a lot going on, but it is kind of like the conclusion to a lot of things. When it comes to fighting God, it's a JRPG. So like, if you expected anything different, how dare you? So
Fair, fair.
I think that Rivers in the Desert is one of like my favorite video game songs of all time. And when it started playing, I felt a lot of emotion. I felt like really driven to keep going in this game and to finish it and see it through. And I really vibe with the lyrics and how it was implemented into that fight.
I really enjoyed Shido's Akechi's whole like turn. I
Mhm.
thought it was super cool and interesting. Like Akechi just literally going insane. I think it was it Robbie Malek. Who voices
Yeah,
Akechi? I think it's Robbie, right?
Yeah, I know his first name's Robbie, and I've met him, and he's really cool.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
sick.
yeah. So I've got this statue of Akechi, and that I had him sign, and he also signed my Persona 5 Royal like case, and he's also Shoya in A Silent Voice, if you've seen that movie, and I had him sign my copy of A Silent Voice. He was super duper nice. I brought all those things and I was like, "Hey, like is it okay if I ask you to sign these things or can you just sign one?" And he's like, normally I have to charge you for like each individual one, but I'm just going to charge you for one and I'll sign all three of them for you." And he was just like super nice. Great guy.
Cool. That's
Mhm.
awesome. But yeah, I honestly really loved his version of Akechi. I really think
Mhm.
he does like a really well job of like going from oh let's be this calm sane person to literal insanity and screaming all over the place, and it's like like he just gets pissed off at the fact that they're using the power of friendship and he isn't like it's
Yeah.
he's a really interesting character. I love Akechi. He's kind of one of the most interesting characters in the game, honestly.
Yeah.
But overall, Shido's Palace is pretty good. I enjoyed his boss fight too. I thought Akechi's Confidant, but we'll get to that in a second. But the next
Yeah.
thing to mention is Mementos. I think Mementos is okay. I don't think it's as strong as any of the palaces in the game. I wouldn't say I dislike it per se, but I think it looks a little bit flat, honestly. The side quests are often not super great. Some of the side quests are pretty good. Like I remember one where you had to. This one girl keeps trying to save a cat because her kitten ended up like crossing the street and ended up dying or something like that. So there are times where like you feel like you're sticking up for the little guy, and of course you get the side quest that relate to your confidant, which is pretty cool. But other than that, I think the side quests are a bit weak, and that's okay for the side quests to be weak. You don't have to do all of them, but it generally has a purpose, but not that great. The devs are interesting, but I feel like I feel like it's such a long, tedious thing to go through. But as long as you pace yourself pretty well throughout Mementos and throughout the game, you generally are going to be a lot better suited for it in the end. But what do you think of Mementos and the side quest?
That Ryuji Confidant really comes in handy in Mementos, and I
Yeah,
love
yeah, it really
it.
does.
What I do is I essentially wait until the next part of Mementos opens up when I know that I am in a space where I don't have anything else to be doing. We're not infiltrating a palace right now or anything. And then I go down there and I say like, hey, even if I'm just grinding today, I'm just doing Mementos today. If you like this is like advice too, like not strictly for you obviously, but for anyone. If you want to really level up in this game and get all the collectibles and stuff like that, it's good to tell yourself, I've gotten to a stopping point for a bit. I'm gonna go into Mementos and do Mementos things, and you can take care of a couple like the little side quests if you want. Um, and then go do Jose's stars and stuff like that that he's got laying around, which is a good addition in Royal, I think.
Oh yeah, I
It
agree. I think it makes the whole process of Memento so much better, especially when
yeah,
you can upgrade like your XP or the money that you gain. I think that's sick.
yeah, that's fun, and it's whimsical and cute and adds a little flair, and I think that it gives you more incentive to go into Mementos, if not strictly just for the sake of having done it all or whatever. I think like obviously it's not the strongest point of the game, but I think it makes sense of like when you're not in a palace, you don't really have a lot of opportunity to get stronger outside of like your confidants giving you specific abilities. So from like a level grinding perspective and getting some more like unique items and discovering things about personas and getting personas, I think that Mementos is really good. But I think that the ability to make it a lot less hard on yourself and a lot less difficult, and understanding I'm doing this chunk today, getting certain chunks done as you go, is the best route to go with Mementos. And it ties into the narrative. These are people who are essentially trying to help the public, and so sometimes the public has problems and they're addressing them going in there and using that as a way to get stronger. And I think that that's, I don't know if it could have been better, but I think that like it's still a good way of handling that kind of thing in a game like this, and provided a resource for you to better yourself as a fighter in this game.
And then we have the long last mission of the game, which is like the race to the end of the base game. Actually, this is the final thing. Obviously, this is just one big last mission. The mini bosses were pretty cool because they were all like versions of angels, which I thought was like a really cool touch. The gameplay was kind of like a bit forceful. It was like, okay, you got to keep on going.
Yeah.
But in the end boss battle I thought was really great, like using different sins like vanity, lust, and all the others, inflicted upon you. And the story is quite interesting. I thought it was pretty good overall, and I thought that was an end to the base game that I thought was really good. So, what did you think about the little race to the end?
It's a big challenge. Like the game knows, like especially in base game, like this is it. You have to be ready for this, you know. Um, and you have to really take on that challenge. I think that although it is hard to fight these bosses back to back and to fight God himself, because he is, in my opinion, a difficult boss fight, so long as you've like spent the time to try and make sure that you are prepared, you should be fine as long as you take in some kind of tactic and actually apply that. But yeah, no, I like it. I think it was very emotional. Like I said, that part where the Phantom Thieves thought that they were dying really hit me like really hard. At the end, it was really like triumphant to see them do that. I think that the original ending is really good, and it hit me really hard when it happened. I was just so emotional. I was just like, oh my god, like this game. Um, I think that the part where like Morgana comes back and gets to be with them, like I think that like a lot of it's like this big mushy appeal to emotion that just kind of works. Um, and I don't know, I just like it. It felt conclusive for what it was, and I thought that that was honestly great. I really like the original ending, and I really like that part of the game, even though sometimes it wants to like kick me to the ground and like bash my head in, but it's okay.
But now we get to the real stuff. Okay, Dr. Maruki's Palace. I love this palace so much. Best in the game. Best villain, good backstory, interesting actions. His perfect world is fascinating in terms of like how he thinks of the world. The only thing that I think that I dislike is that he is like, okay, I can't wait to start, and it's like, okay, guys, we have to go back into Mementos, and I was like, ah, god damn it. So I had to go back into Mementos, which is like, woo, white now. But overall, I thought the palace was filled with so many great details. The puzzles were fun. Even the ending puzzle, which I thought would be annoying, was actually pretty cool. And I like the mixtures between all the colors and stuff. I thought that was really cool and great. The gameplay was great. The music was great. Akechi's values are great. Everything works about this
Mhm.
Dr. Maruki fight. And I think that the final fight in particular takes advantage of the baton pass in particular, which is like if you hit, one of the weaknesses, you can then pass it on. At first, I was like, how am I gonna be able to do damage? And then I took advantage of that one more system, and it was like, oh, okay, this is actually a super cool idea to like use a boss fight because you're like switching in and out every time to do main damage. It's super great. I really enjoyed that boss fight. But yeah, I love Dr. Maruki's palace. About him being evil, I think that Dr. Maruki isn't in a traditional sense evil, but I think he's like he basically wants to get rid of all human suffering, which I think is like a morally wrong thing to do, to like take away suffering, because suffering is like the thing that gives us, the high points as well. It's because you have suffering and the low points in your life, you're able to feel the high points of your life and the happiness that you feel. So if you take that away, you kind of just end up at this line that you go through where nothing's quite happy but nothing's quite down either, and it seems like a miserable kind of existence to live through, because I think suffering inherently gives us meaning. But yeah, I think that Dr. Marky's super interesting and in a great palace. I love the little piano theme too. It's so great, man.
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, I I really like that palace. I think that it's really well executed, and the fact that they implemented Maruki early on in Royal is really good. I think that he is one of the, if not like the best written villain, absolutely. I think that Royal was genuinely really hard for me after playing vanilla Persona because of Maruki. I think that I am very, very akin to Maruki. Um, and so to watch the group and the game sort of want to defy him was even hard for me because I actually kind of to some extent agreed with him. And it was hard to watch the sadder parts, like watch Akechi, despite the fact that he doesn't want to live under anyone's thumb ever again, which is understandable. Watch Akechi understand and accept his death, and the rest, and Joker at least accepting his death. To watch Morgana finally be able to be a human and be like a person, and to that not be a thing anymore. To watch everyone have these really nice interactions with everyone around them, and to realize that that's fake, but it's also attainable. Like, I think that if anyone's saying Maruki is evil, then they're just wrong. I think that he is not even close to evil. And I think that I have a strange perspective because I genuinely had a really hard time turning him down because I felt like the game wanted me to turn him down. And like the societal option, like the societal expectation is sort of to turn him down. And I didn't want to see things go wrong for these characters if whatever he was going on about was wrong, I guess. Um, and that genuinely is probably one of the toughest decisions that I've ever made in a video game that had a lot of impact on me, I guess. I think that the biggest obstacle to Maruki's vision is probably just the limit of his power because like I'm an atheist, and I think that that kind of plays into this, especially since it's like implied that he has a god complex, obviously, right? But to me, I've never really understood people saying that you have to endure suffering in order to have highlights in your life. I think that that statement is true, but I don't think that it is true in the people in the way that people think it is, especially religious people. I think that bad things just happen and that you have to learn how to cope with those bad things or you will never survive. And sometimes people don't survive. And I think that I don't believe in God, and my ideal version of an all-loving, all-knowing God would be someone who would just be able to make us happy all the time. Because I don't see the point in living if you're not happy. I don't see the point in freedom if you're not happy. To that extent, obviously. I think that freedom in itself is one of the most valuable assets that we have. And I think that it is so, so important. And I don't want anyone to mistake me in thinking that that freedom is not valuable, because it is. And I think that in our circumstances, a lot of people have known what it's like to not have freedom, and it's terrible and awful. And it is something that we as a society constantly have to work for other people. So metaphorically speaking, I think that Maruki and what he represents, while good intentioned, is almost like the reboot Virgil. I need to take care of you, therefore you have to listen to me, right? And that is how you get like dictators and monarchies, and I don't believe in those, right? But I also think that because I don't believe in a god, I believe that these things are purely substantial. Bad things are in nature going to happen to you. But I think that it is like scientifically proven that you can thrive when as little bad things as possible happen to you. Like when you, for example, you can be in a super abusive situation, and when you get out of that, you can find a silver lining. You can find a way to move on. You can find things to learn about that, and you can find, and because like there's essentially a butterfly effect where you can find things in your life that are great because of that thing happening, despite the fact that that thing was bad and never should have happened, right? But I also think that a lot of times you could still be perfectly happy without that thing happening. And a lot of times it is very good. My stepdad was verbally and emotionally abusive, and I to this day have little things that affect me on a daily basis because of that. And though I think in a lot of ways I've become more intellectual and stronger because of that, I also just kind of prefer that it didn't happen, or that I don't suffer the constant ramifications of that. And I think that the idea of having an undeniable power to make people happy, I think that that scares people because we've never seen anything actually like that. But is it really all that bad to be happy, even if it's at the stake of your freedom? Because you are undeniably actually happy. Because, like, if someone were to ask me, like, why I'm alive, some people might say that like they feel like this sort of joy from overcoming pain, but that's because you don't really have a choice. You have to move on from pain or you don't, and you die. Like, but a lot of people feel happiness without going through a lot of pain in their life, and we know that like a lot of like pain causes ramifications that keep people experiencing pain as they continue through life. We know that there's no cure for depression. You just learn to deal with it. Well, what if someone could deal with it? I almost feel like I'd take Maruki up because I'm sad, and I sure I can feel all like proud of myself for overcoming it and for staying alive as long as I have. But frankly, I'd rather just be happy, and there's not going to really be any room to question it because I'm happy. I feel like the biggest limit really is his power, and how many people is he affecting? Are they staying happy for the rest of their lives? Do bad things happen to them from now on? I feel like there's a lot more question of how this impacts everyone. Um, but if someone were to like undeniably create a utopia in which people could be happy, I don't understand. I think that it's a very human response to say, no, you're taking away my freedom, because we've never had a person who has actual god powers saying, I can make you happy. But I don't think that it's wrong to deny that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting way to see things. I don't necessarily think this is something to agree or disagree on per se, because
Mhm.
it's just like the different ways we see life, you know. But
Yeah.
personally, I don't see things through the lens of happiness. I think suffering is an inherent form of life that we need to accept, and I think the more that we accept it, the better it'll be. Like accepting that there is suffering and stress and anxiety, all things that I think can lead to better outcomes and end up for you as growing as a person. The best way I like to think of things is that if everything's perfect, there's never really room for improvement, you know? Because if everything is like constantly good all the time, there's no reason for it to be great. The whole reason why we have good and bad movies, or like the reason why we have bad movies, is so we can appreciate the good ones, you know. That's the way I see things, you know. But I
Yeah.
appreciate you opening up about all this stuff and how like Dr. Markey has like affected you, you know.
Yeah. Um, and I still do think that my perspective is a little bit different. but that's just me. But I think that because of the way that like the laws of nature are, bad things will happen, and you have to learn to deal with that. And that is part of the beauty of the life that we do live in. But I think that what Maruki is offering is quite literally something that is impossible to us, and that's why I find it so interesting. And I think that even like properly water and take care of your plant, it is probably going to grow up to be really, really beautiful and great. Um, so I don't really find bad things necessary in the fact that if I had control over it, it should still happen. More in the fact that I don't have control over it, and therefore it will still happen. From a metaphorical point of view, I think that Maruki and what he stands for in a like in our lives, and essentially having to accept that bad things happen and growing from them and confronting those things. Absolutely, yes. I just think it's interesting because if there quite literally were a guy with godly powers who could make anyone happy, like I wouldn't turn him down. I don't know.
I get that. Yeah. Personally, I'm far more skeptical
That's fair.
when it comes to people offering, utopias per se.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the way I see things. But so we got through all the palaces. Do you want to go over some of the confidants?
Sure.
So in particular, let's start off with Ryuji. What do you think of Ryuji's confidant?
I love his because of that thing that I've brought up several times. But I know that that's more of like a perk than his actual confidant. I think that like people have called his confidant weak, but I don't really know what else they were supposed to do with him. He's kind of attempting to rekindle his relationship with the track team, and they're still pushing him away because, like, just because they took care of Kamoshida doesn't necessarily mean they took care of everything. And there's this whole part of Ryuji that is trying to be patient with them and trying to do the best thing for them, even though he can't really go back to that part of his life ever again. Um, like in Maruki's perfect fantasy, he can, but from the perspective of what kind of narrative this game is trying to tell you, yes, he's moved on, and that's okay, but he can still help them. He's trying to help them move on, and I think that that's all right, you know. Um, and his is definitely like so easy to do because of how early he comes in, and he even seems like generally more available than On. So he's just a really easy to max out, gives you some good perks, just like I don't know, the golden retriever. Like I don't know, I like it. It's good.
Yeah, I agree. I love Ryuji's confidant. He's actually one of my favorite characters in the game, mostly because of how interesting he is. He's. I know he's trying to rekindle the track team kind of passion and trying to come. He also, funny enough, even though the game likes to make fun of him for like not being the smartest, he's actually like one of the most mature when it comes to his confidant. I feel like he makes a lot of mature decisions. Like even when you talk to the track team, and if you end up getting mad at them, like Ryuji kind of sees it as pointless and wants to offer up his best foot forward. You know, so
Yeah, and a lot of the track team in the school perceives him as the reason as to why the track team fell apart. But despite all that, it wasn't his fault, and he's actually someone who wants to build up the people around him and help fix that, even if he's never going back, which I think says a lot about him as a character.
agreed. I think Ryuji is a deeper character than most people give him credit for. You know.
Yeah.
The next confidant to go up is An. I thought gameplay wise, An's okay. And story wise, I also thought she was okay. I didn't think that she was that great either way, but in terms of gameplay or story, but I think that she does an alright job of trying to fulfill that. Love Talk, I think, is one of the ones that actually is helpful time to time, which is where she like charms the other enemy before they can attack, which I think is a pretty cool idea, but it's kind of random, so you don't exactly get it all the time.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought Anne was kind of fine. I guess her romantic story is pretty okay too. But on everybody romances on at first until you realize that there's more characters and they tend to be a bit more interesting. I guess On kind of gets the short side of the cake because to most people she's kind of normal. I guess.
I really like On. I think that she's like a heavy hitter, so her confidant mostly just has its function in helping you do damage output when you use her. I think that her confidant, like, obviously isn't like the strongest. A lot of it's like, hey, let's talk about her modeling career, which, like, that's what she's interested in, she's passionate in, so it's easy to see why they went there. It's just not like the craziest. um I think that it shows there's a lot to be said about On and her sexuality. um On is someone who is very pretty, and she knows it, but she also doesn't like that being taken advantage of. I think that On represents, for one, the actual models, cosplayers, and even sex workers to an extent, where people think that taking advantage of those people because they are attractive or promiscuous in a way means that they just get to do whatever they want. And On kind of represents the I can be this way while also being more than that. And I can be this way while being a good person. And I can be this way without you ever without you ever taking advantage of that. And that really shows with Kamoshida especially. But with her modeling career, she frequently talks about how she finds like the femme fatale kind of interesting, and these sort of like very confidant but also very confident but like sexy but like really like cool badass like women to be role models for her, and how she wants to be that. And we know that On is one of the most emotionally smart people in the group. um and she is also actually kind of out there. She's got a more forward personality a lot of the times, and she likes to address things head on. But we see that that's kind of shut away from her in the Kamoshida side of her story until she overcomes that part of her. So we see that she is attempting to be her most confident self and to inspire other people to be confident, um, as well, but not letting people um, trample on that, and to show that she's full of many things. And Yusuke sees this. Yusuke sees that On, like, to him is like a really good like reference in his drawings, for example, because of that model side of her. And I think that this other model who's just like awful and just mean to her and super surface level shows, if anything, it can seem like a petty sort of like catfight deal, but it does show how in this profession, how it can be a lot of really surface level for a lot of people. But it's really interesting because she's modeling, and she's modeling because she wants confidence in herself and wants to inspire other people, and because she sees what she's doing as an art form and an inspiration piece, which is an interesting perspective to take on modeling specifically. um but I've always really liked On, and I think that's kind of the purpose of her character. Um, so I guess you kind of see that shine through, and you see a little bit of her hanging out with Shiho, and that's not really your connection with Shiho, so you don't see a lot of her, but you do see On talking about Shiho, spending time with Shiho even if you're not there. You see how much she really cares about her friend even now, and I think that is at least pretty cool, even if it's not like the strongest confidant, if that makes sense.
All right, so the next confidant is Yusuke. For me, Yusuke's gameplay side is not that helpful. I've never really needed the skill cards in particular. You can play the game just like without it completely, and you'll still do pretty good. So basically, like, Yusuke's gameplay wise is it's a bit meh, but I think his story side is actually really great. I love the fact that he's trying to become the inner artist that he thinks he can be, to try and, prove himself to the art society, to himself, to others, even going into Mementos and trying to create a painting. Even in his confidant, we see him try his first try of a painting, and it, goes terribly. But later on, he then gets the confidence and the skills to, create something good. So I really like Yusuke's confidant, even though the gameplay side is a bit weak.
In the base game, I didn't use the cards either, but in Royal, there was once or twice where I used it, and it was actually really helpful, but it was once or twice, I think that I like seeing his bizarre antics, especially when you go to the museum and he's trying to pose like he's Jesus Christ, but he's just like flailing his arms about. Like, I just love that.
Yeah, I love that. He just gets on one foot and starts doing this little Y position. It's great.
I think that it's an interesting look into like the artist world, because no matter like I I went to school, I got my associates in illustration. So I've heard a lot of perspectives from teachers and stuff. And some of them say like it doesn't matter how good your piece is or how hard you worked on it or any of the attributing factors. Sometimes you're going to enter it into this place that it just happens to not really be popular among those people, or it just flops, you know? And like having Yusuke have to take this scathing criticism from this guy, despite the fact that you know and think that it's a beautiful piece. I think that the fact that I think that the Mementos piece specifically is like really pretty and really cool, because of how nobody really knows what Mementos is, and Yusuke specifically is someone who's had to become acquainted with it, and what it represents is this big swirling pit of desire. I think that's really cool and an idea. I don't remember if that's the one that the guy critiqued. I just like that painting, but I think that this whole as an artist, I kind of vibe with the whole. Sometimes you work really hard on something, and for one reason or another, it just does not come out the way that you wanted, or wasn't received the way that you wanted. And sometimes you have to learn to take criticism. I know there's like a whole story there. I feel like I kind of need to revisit his Confidant, to be fair, but I feel like it was pretty good from a narrative point of view. Like I said, the cards, they were helpful when they were helpful, but it was few and far between.
Something about maybe it's like art, or like the fact that I like, connect to the creative side. I feel like I get Yusuke more than other people do because he's kind of weird and funny. Oh, I remember the boat scene where he
Yeah.
starts painting the other people on the other side, and he's like, "Stand still."
They're like, "Hey, what you doing? I'm painting you. Now hold still."
Oh
I
man.
fucking love Yusuke, man.
Yeah, Yusuke gives us the best time. The next one up is the doctor lady. Gameplay wise, she's not good. I didn't think she had great gameplay perks other than just, oh, it's cheaper in the store, which is somewhat useful, but like generally at near the end of the game, you're not going to really be worrying about money. Considering
Yeah.
all you need to do is just to go into Mementos for a little while, and then you'll get more than enough money than you need. So the money aspect wasn't really needed for medicine, but story wise, she was actually really cool. Sadly, I didn't get to level 10. I got her to level 9 right before I ended the game. The sad part is that when I went into the depths of Mementos, apparently I had 5 days, but it said a few days, and I didn't know how much that meant, so I just ran it all in one day, which I wish I'd spent it on doing a couple confidants before that deadline. But
Yeah.
it's cool. But either way, I really enjoyed her story about how she like gets up and how she's dealing with the whole medical industry and how she takes care of this small girl in particular. I thought her story was quite good, and I really enjoyed it.
That, that's fair. From the beginning, especially like on this replay where I'm still in the beginning stages, like having cheaper medicine is preferable, especially since I use a lot of items right now until I have better. I've never really cared too much of her as a character, um, but I get the appeal, I think. Um, Her story is essentially, yeah, she's actually like really looking into something to help these people. She was kind of screwed over. Like that part's like really cool. But she is also like the most reckless, like unprofessional doctor I have ever seen. And I everything she does, I'm like, you are actually like so you're such like a societal problem. Like what are you doing? Like
Yeah,
but if
just
anything
just run a few tests on some kids. It's just the natural doctor way. Okay.
this like My Chemical Romance ass lady became a doctor like in her mid 20s, and then decided well, there's the whole story with the girl is good, and I haven't finished her Confidant, so maybe I can't like say for sure, but I've gotten like a decent way through it. I feel like that's bold and cool on her part, and I get why people vibe with that. But every time I go see her, I'm like, why are you doing this? This is so illegal. This is so illegal. She gives Joker like actual like polyjuice potion shit, and just knocks him out, and then it's like, I'll just leave him there until he wakes up, and then you can also romance her, so it's like, aha, this teenager that I experimented on for reasons because I got this past trauma, I'm trying to help this kid, so I'm just like making like scientific experiments in my attic, and then I got with the teenager, so like I feel like she's just a wild card. I can't say a whole lot about her other than wow, this is just fucking bizarre.
Okay. Look, in her defense, she's number 1, pretty. Number 2, she's a doctor. Number 3, she's goth. Need I say no more? Okay.
Judge, I'm pretty. I get to date this teenage boy.
Exactly. See, it all makes sense. It all works out. The next one up is one that I think that you'll like. I didn't get to max her out, but Yoshizawa's Confidant. I went up to her with 5, and then I was like, oh, thank the Lord, her confidant's truly done. And then I get to the Dr. Maruki part of the game, and then it's like, here's another 5, and I was like, oh no, not again. But I thought she was pretty good from what I think I got to 7 or to 6, but I didn't quite finish her confidant. So you have more experience than I do when it comes to her confidant. So tell me more about it.
Um, so I really like Yoshizawa, and I think that in her design and her mannerisms, in some ways she really reflects Joker, and that just makes me like think of them as like a dynamic duo in a way, despite the fact that she came in so late, which I think is impressive. Um, I like the fact that she is consistently preparing for like there's a lot of like little like fun stuff with her, like when she surprises you in Hawaii or when she's eating like 5,000 pounds of food and she's like, well, I'm an athlete, I have to. She tries to make you food, but it's not very good. You guys go and try on like these glasses at some
Oh,
point.
I
I don't
like the
remember why.
glasses part.
Yeah. I think that she's just fun and sweet. And they probably kind of did that on purpose to be like, hi, so we saw how much you guys fought over who's best waifu. So what if we just like made this chick who appeals to like a wide audience? um, she's very sweet. I think her story is really good. I like the fact that she kind of seems almost like a different person when she want to discover that side of her, but then you can learn to appreciate her for that side of her. She almost reminds me of Cloud Strife in a way. I have severe trauma, so I'm essentially taking on another person's personality. And the role of Aerith in this position would be Joker, in my opinion, because I remember strictly there being this conversation between Aerith and Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, where Aerith sits him down because you know that she knows that he has taken on Zack's persona. Zack is dead, and she has feelings for Zack, but they're also two different people, and Cloud doesn't even really know this at the time. But she says to him, like, you don't get this, but I want to get to know you for who you are, even if a side of me really, really loves him, you know? And I think that, like, in that second part of her is learning to appreciate her as who she is, even if you've got glimpses of that, but you've also seen her sister through her. And now her being utterly vulnerable to you or Joker and you accepting that. And since I romanced her, you also get to see, like, that dating side of her where they're a couple, and I also thought that was really sweet, and she was just like a sweet girlfriend. So, yeah.
Oh, this is actually perfect timing. Akechi's confidant. Number 1, why can't I date Akechi? Number 2, number 2, he's pretty good gameplay wise. Even though a lot of people say that they didn't find the analysis stuff that helpful, I thought it came across pretty often in the certain game where like, or certain parts of the game where like I was having troubles dealing with it, and then all of a sudden, ting, and then I figure out what their weaknesses are. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I love him story wise. To hear about how he was basically like neglected as a kid because his father's obviously Shido, and then his mom was basically I think like a whore. But there was also like there's also I believe there's a video that I saw about the breakdown of Akechi, and I think it's Better Red Than Dead or something like that. And it shows that he was like an unwanted child, and everybody kind of made fun of it. Like I saw a few videos on YouTube of like everybody making fun that he was a unwanted child, and I didn't know why that made any difference until I found out that in Japanese society, like 80 to 90% of people in Japanese society like don't tend to like like kids that are unwanted or they're abandoned by their parents. It's like a societal downward hill kind of thing where like it spirals out of control because they don't see them as potential. They end up not becoming anything of themselves, and people just generally don't like neglected children. So I'm just now kind of finding that out about Akechi's character, and I think Akechi's character is really, really cool. Like I said, I think his mix between his side that he keeps a persona for others and his side where he goes absolutely batshit insane is also quite interesting. So yeah, I think Akechi's Confidant is great.
Same. I also want to say that Tumblr agrees with you that Akechi should be dateable.
I know. It's not just me.
Um, so I have had this strange thing since I was very little, where I've had, for some reason, I am very compelled by toxic man children characters, which is maybe why I'm in the reboot fandom. But
Makes
I
sense. One of us. One of us. Anyway.
So one of my favorite characters of all time since I was like a toddler is Anakin Skywalker. And I noticed that especially when these characters have long brown hair, I just gravitate to them for some reason. Eren Yeager as well, Light Yagami. Like, there's like a whole
Yeah, our
list.
boy Light. Yeah.
I love Light. So Akechi has always really appealed to me, and he's also kind of been like really great for like memes. So I just kind of love that aspect of him. But like from an actual like serious character standpoint, I think that he shows a side of him that is not real at all to everyone. And it goes back to the whole wearing a mask thing, and we saw that with like Yoshizawa and everyone else too. He shows a side to everyone that is completely like fake. But that's kind of how he's had to manage his whole life. He's been alone his whole life. Even if Shido's been there, it's not really that he's actually been there. So nobody has ever seen Akechi for who he truly is, and so he hides it. But he has these very, very passionate feelings bubbling underneath. And I think that anyone trying to see that side of him puts him in a sort of defensive position where he wants to push them away as much as possible. And I feel like that's kind of realistic for someone in that position. If you've never had friends and you felt like that's not going to help you in any kind of way, and you've always taken care of yourself in that sort of way, then why would you accept people if they feel like you know deep down that they care about you, but you're almost internalizing that as they're talking down to me, they don't understand me, they don't understand what I'm going through. I can't do this because you've never like been in a situation where anyone's loved you before. And I feel like that's kind of where that crazy side of him comes from. And he was quite literally like conditioned by Shido to do awful things, and he knows that they're awful. But as a child, how was he supposed to really ever say no or do anything else? And he sort of had to make people on the outside love himself by putting on a persona. So there's a lot to be said. He's done a lot better in Royal with his confidant especially, but then in later Royal, when you know that he's dead, but a part of him is still lingering about, which I think it's great that they decided to keep him as dead. I think that's very good for his like character. But I think that like him denying the fact that he should live under someone else's thumb for other people, live something that is fake, is very much true to his character. And how he decides to be a lot more forward. If he doesn't like something, he's just going to tell you to your fucking face. He's not going to pretend anymore. He really becomes like a new person himself, but you understand why that side of him is likable because he's being like truthful, wearing his heart on his sleeve to you, and expects you to meet him on equal level because he doesn't want you above or underneath him like truly. If he ever seems like he does, that was his sheer defensive mechanism. I think that he's a good parallel to Joker because they're both people who were done dirty by specifically Shido, but also just like societal pressures and how they took that in different situations, but also how Joker's friendship was able to still help him turn around in a sense, and how I also just love that kind of like rivalry dynamic where they still like very much like care about each other. And I liked playing as him. I thought he was a lot of fun. I just really like Akechi, and I also think that when you're in a new fight that's really intimidating and you don't know or remember the weakness, like it's good to have that chance to be able to just know, because a lot of times that can make or break a fight and whether or not you die or not. So I love Akechi, basically.
I like Akechi too. Honestly, his personas in particular are pretty interesting. Obviously, we have Robin Hood, which is like the goody two shoes, right? The persona that he shows for everybody else. And then when he shows his true form, it's Loki, which we all know is like the god of trickster. And then his third persona is Arrowward. I didn't know who Arrowward was at first, but I looked up the history. He's from the 15th century or 11th century. I don't remember the exact time, but he was in Great Britain. He was like a warrior in not a warrior per se, but in Great Britain. And then apparently I think he was exiled, or not exiled, but he went out of his country, and the Scottish ended up taking over Great Britain, right, and the area, and Airward basically found out about this. He heard about his family getting killed, so he basically set himself on a war path to kill as many not British people, but as many Scottish people as possible and exiled them from the land. He's basically like a kind of like a weird, twisted hero in a way, which I think fits Akechi, the character, quite well. So yeah.
That's interesting, and I didn't know that about his third. I do want to mention, like, this is a completely side note, but I really like I like Captain Kidd, but I really like Ryuji's Monkey King persona that he gets. I think that's just such a cool, fun design, but like nobody really talks about it because it's his second persona. But I really like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of these personas, in terms of like they're well chosen in terms of like lore and characters, and they all kind of connect to the character in a different way, and I think that's really neat as well.
Arsene is the guy. He's the persona of the game, right? I wanted to mention this. I talk about this with my friends sometimes. I think that the fact that so they're all tricksters and they're wearing these sort of like old-fashioned sort of like it feels fancy but it also feels like deceptive. I'm gonna go rob a bank kind of thing, but they're also the heroes, and stealing people's desires is a really fun way to handle the metaverse, as well as the fact that that plays into how they play. Like in Royal you get like the pulley thing, right? But you sneak around, you infiltrate these places, you have a mask, you have an alternate side to you, and that also created a window for the creators to have two sides to these people. In like Persona 4, for example, if you go into the metaverse, you wear glasses. In Persona 5, you have an outfit that outwardly reflects every single person's inner identity while also matching their personas, like their actual personas, while also serving a gameplay function into how specifically they traverse the metaverse in a way that none of the other Persona games have before, with the whole trickster vibe. And it also, I think that a reason why this vibes with people so well is, for one, the red. I for some reason think that the red is just like a really good stylistic choice, but I also think that their designs, having more than just their school designs, their school designs are really good but intentionally subtle. These designs feel more otherworldly. They bring out more of the characters, and they're so iconic that I feel like they were able to grasp a wider audience sheerly just off of character design alone, because they gave a window for an alternate but just as memorable, if not more memorable, character design for each individual character. And I think that that is really cool and really unique about Persona 5 specifically, at least to some extent, which is worth noting. Like, sorry, that's a little bit like off topic, but I think that that is really cool.
Oh no, I definitely agree with you 100%. I think you're onto something saying that I think they did capture a wider audience, trying to do that. In the metaverse in Persona 3 Portable, it's all you kind of get is the C's armband, which I think it's okay, I guess, but it's not like as in depth as, Persona 5's great ideals of like different characters, even when it comes down to Akechi and how he starts off with this long nose and he seems all tightly pressed, and then when his true self reveals, it's just this black knight in armor. Every like style that they choose has some sort of reason for it, and it shows off the character's individual strengths, which I think is really cool. And I think you're right. I think it grabbed a larger audience and a connection with these characters more so.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one is to go over is Kamakami. I think that her story, gameplay wise and story wise, are pretty good. Obviously, in terms of gameplay, you get to go out at night after being in the metaverse, which I think is great. And I abuse the living crap out of it. Also, you can have her make coffee and curry for you, while you do something else. While you do something else, which I think is super helpful. I generally overlike her. What's another perk that she uses?
The
Um,
school when you're
yeah,
in class.
yes, that's the one that I didn't even know about when I played it the first 2 times, and I was like, I wonder what I can do with all this free time as soon as I have the chance. You don't get any. I don't think you get anything for sleeping. Like one time, I think I slept in class, and I got like a dream with me and Ryuji in it, and it's like your bond in him has strengthened. And I'm like, okay, what? Um, but okay. Story wise, I thought she was pretty great too. She's basically kind of a teacher. She's a little bit annoying, like you said, but I thought her story wise, in terms of the overall plot, was pretty good. And her finding out that you're a phantom thief is quite good as well. So I mostly just like her gameplay wise, honestly.
Fair. Um, I think that a lot of my perspective against Kawakami is kind of biased, considering that I've been able to like a lot of characters who commit atrocities and do bad things before, including things like being inappropriate towards characters that are technically minors before. But I found other things that I liked about them a lot more than I like about Kawakami, so that's maybe why I have like this adamant hate for her. But it's also just kind of a meme between me and my friends that I just fucking hate Kawakami. Um, I think that so when I criticize her, I think that it's pretty obvious that I'm criticizing her a little bit more heavily than I would for someone else. So when I say these things, like take it for what it is. It's hard for me to really like her because of her attitude. I don't really like it that much. Sometimes it's funny, but like it sometimes it's just like why are you even here if you just like don't care? Like I girl, I just get it together. I think that her confidants really pretty good. I abuse the shit out of this like making shit during school one. I really like that one. And I think that a big part with me that I found disappointing was the fact that her story starts out really good, but I think that her story specifically is very tainted by the fact that you can romance her. This being because her story is essentially that she was trying to help out this male student and something went wrong, and now the family is lashing out at her and expecting money, and so she's taken up this night job that would maybe get her fired, that is societally looked down upon, so that she can repay this family essentially. Um, and I think that it's interesting that she's accepting help from another teenage boy, and she's kind of in a way trying to help him to some extent, um, while making up for the fact that this other relationship with this teenage boy went so weird. But it is tainted in my eyes by the fact that you can romance her. I think it's just so bizarre. But that's just like we know for a fact that she didn't get with this other teenage boy. That didn't happen. And a lot of people will like it's weird for me, a game that is so conscious about so many things, especially Kamoshida, for example, just lets you as a teenage boy date your middle-aged teacher. Um, and I know that it's like a whole thing where like, well, the age of consent is not as high in Japan. Well, I would think it was wrong if he were 18 still. Um, I think that even like in a situation between adults where they're teachers, I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm saying that you need to be careful if that's even a situation between adults, but one of them is like a college teacher or something. I think that that position of power mixed with the fact that he is still a teenager, that we know for like scientific fact his brain is still developing, it's just weird. It's such a power imbalance, and it's so strange to see take place after Kamoshida that it's jarring. And even though Joker can romance other adult women, I'm just not as harsh on them. But maybe that's just because they're not his teacher. It just seems like such a strange thing for her whole arc to be doing everything to help this other teenage boy and then be shunned for it, only for her to get into a relation with another teenage boy, like an actual relationship, which is just strange.
That's fair. I mean, I like her mostly just like as an individual character. In
Yeah,
terms of her dating teenagers, oh yeah, I disagree. Like even though I said out of jokingly wise, the doctor lady is hot. I don't think teenagers dating older, you know, older women are a good idea, like at all.
yeah,
I don't really like that at all. But it's something where I can like feel like it's the context of like the culture, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
like it per se. I don't think it's good. I wouldn't put it in my society, quote unquote, right? But I'm more lenient to that, I guess, because I guess it's a video game. It's like a work of art, so it's not technically like doing it in real life. So I guess I have more lenience towards that, but I do disagree with it overall. I disagree with
Yeah.
it towards any character, honestly, that is dating like an older character. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that I've heard some people might rationalize it as, well, your Joker is a self-insert character, so it might just be for adults who want a more adult character. And maybe, like, I'm trying not to just like shit all over like people for maybe have choosing that or whatever, because it is fiction. And sometimes people want to be like, I saw, like, oh, in high school I just wanted to date my teacher, but I knew it was wrong and I never tried it. I never wanted to do anything like that. But like, hey, in the video game, why not? Like, I don't know what people are doing. I can't afford to be that mad over it, because like media does shit like this all the time. Like, it's all over the place where like media missteps and does things where it's like, why would you put that in there? Like, why is that there? But like, that's just media. So I can't really do anything. I just personally don't really like her. So
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. So let's talk about someone that I guess we all kind of like. Makoto. What do you think of Makoto? I thought her story was pretty alright. Her story wise was alright. Gameplay wise, I don't even remember what she does gameplay wise. Does she do anything useful on it? Because I can't remember right off the straight off my head.
I don't remember, honestly.
Oh, so I'm not the only one. Oh,
No, it might be something important. I just genuinely do not remember. But some of the confidants, you've reminded me of what they've done. So I don't know. I kind of view Makoto the same way that I view On. Like, she is like kind of like almost a tanky character sometimes. So like having her confidant up just for the sake of making her stronger, I think is valuable in itself. I also just really like her. Her confidant, I wouldn't say is like my favorite or the most compelling, but I haven't like completed it. I've gotten really close, but I don't think I've ever like completed it. I think it makes sense of like poor Makoto being in a place again where she's essentially trying to reach out because she's been lonely. She's trying to help someone who, we've seen her in the position of being like the student body president and wanting to help her fellow students. One, because she genuinely wants to, and two, because she's been asked to. And in this situation, she's trying to help someone who, in a sense, doesn't really want to be helped, and someone she actually kind of wants to have a friendship with, but kind of has attitude. And I think that that's like interesting by itself. I feel like having having Joker along for like a fake date was like a way for them to be like, waifu, but like I don't necessarily think that's bad. It's just kind of like corny. But I don't know. I never like vibe too much with it, but I understand like why they did it and what it kind of means for her character. I don't think it's bad if I sound negative. I just like I don't know. It is what it is. I like Makoto, so I'll do the confident. I don't know.
yep. Makoto's pretty good. I romanced her, and I thought her romance path was pretty all right. She's it's mostly because she's like the smart girl and the capable one. And I tend to gravitate more towards that. So so yeah. The next one up is one that we're not going to talk about because there's no question about this one. It's the news reporter lady.
Oh yeah.
Fuck
Oh
her.
yeah.
No. She sucks.
But she's the best character.
No, my friend. You are strongly mistaken. I in the base game for both my first and second playthrough, I did her expecting something good gameplay wise to come out of it, but it was terrible. Like there was like zero purpose to her like confidant gameplay wise, and her story was so boring. I could have cared less about anything that was going on in her story wise. I really disliked her. So I hate her. I hate her so much. If there's a character that I hate in Persona 5, it would be her. All right.
Yeah. She's every time that she's on screen, I'm probably making fun of her, or she's just not on screen because I don't worry about her.
Yeah.
Also, fuck her haircut. I don't like her hair.
Yeah, same. I don't like just in general her design is ugly looking. I think that it's super generic.
She's not my favorite. No.
Nearly halfway done here. There's a chess player which I thought was she was okay story wise, great gameplay wise. Mostly because,
Hmm.
like I mentioned this before, you can swap out certain people. I liked Sorjiro's in terms of story. I think that he was pretty interesting, but gameplay wise, I think he needs more to actually make himself more suitable. Because once you get the curry, that's kind of like all you need. Like I've never maxed out his confidant, so I don't know what else he needs to like, or what else he can give you. But I don't know. I've seen his like ranking pretty low on people's overall confidence.
Yeah, anytime that I was leveling him up was for the sake of liking him as a character. I don't remember what he does. I don't care. I just want to hang out with Sojiro because he's best dude, man. He's also my friend's dad because my friend like apparently does not like really get along with their dad that much. So like Sojiro kind of just became my friend's dad. So, I like Sojiro.
Damn. Well, if he's a father figure for you, he's a father figure for all of us. Anyway, um, let me see. Let me see. Oh yeah, the video game player kid. I thought he was actually pretty cute, like as an adorable. Like he's just running around like I'm the good player or whatever, and just beating everybody, and then he finds somebody that he can't beat, and it's like some cheater, so he like beats him the right way. I thought it was basic, yes. It was formulaic, yes, but I still liked it. I thought this kid was just trying his best to like win. But gameplay wise, he was pretty good. I liked the fact that you can like instantly like knock down an enemy with the guns, which I think is super helpful. Although you can only use this a limited amount of times, it was super helpful. So yeah, I liked his confidant overall.
Maybe I just need to like actually max out his confidant, but I have never given two shits about that kid except for one thing, and that is his hat. That hat is pinnacle of fucking persona culture. I fucking love his hat.
I know he even wears it like in a specific angle, right?
The best. But like maybe I should max him out and see what he does because like I hung out with him twice and I was like, I'm never talking to you again.
I mean, if you don't like the way that the story's going, just drop it because there's not a lot of surprises for you. Because
Yeah,
it's like later revealed that his mother's like over controlling, and then you need to go into Mementos to change it. But that's it. Um,
that's fair. I've never like had the desire, but to be fair, like I'm on a replay. I got shit to spare. I could just go max out the people that I've never talked to before. So
I mean, that's what I plan to do with the gun shop guy. What's his name?
yeah,
Legwo?
EY. I think I just call him EY. I think that's his name. I
Ludwig?
Ludwig.
Yeah, Ludwig. That's what I'm gonna call him.
Aha, my favorite character. Um, I've almost maxed him out once. He's not like fantastic, but he's basically like I'm kind of like a bad dad. How do I be a good dad? Aha, I'll hang out with this teenager so I can have like dad moments with this teenager so I can be a better dad, I guess. I don't know.
I just liked it because the Yakuza was involved. Um,
That
I thought
fair. He looks cool. I like his lizard tattoo, so I wanted to max him out.
I couldn't max him out either in either of my playthroughs because he comes in so late in the game. Like
Yeah, you
he's
have to have like guts. You have to have like fucking balls dropped to fucking talk to him.
I know the academics and the everything in this game like really. The only one that I think is not as good in terms of the overall emotional or knowledge or whatever is what is it called? Kindness. You like never need kindness. Um,
Yeah,
I don't. You have to get to rank 2 to talk to Anne, but that's about it. I don't remember. Oh, and I think maybe for the video game kid. But yeah. So the next one I want to talk about is actually really interesting, and I love this confidant. It's Yoshida, the politician guy. Um, I thought story wise, his story arc was really cool. Like seeing him go from this politician with conviction to this guy that had this terrible reputation of no good Tory, and that every opportunity he's chosen a life of easy. He can get out scot free and get a better political career, but every single time he chooses to make the right choice in terms of his morals. That's what I really like about this character. It's the struggle of vice and virtue. If you've ever heard of the Hercules Crossroads story, right? It's a really good. It's a classic story. Gameplay wise, he sucks. There's not a lot to do with him. All you do is like negotiate with shadows a little bit, and that only kind of comes helpful at certain points in time in the game. So yeah, gameplay wise he sucks, but I loved him story wise. What do you think?
I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't know jack shit about him until all that shit that you just said. I've never touched him.
What?
Yeah, I never bothered. I was like, I got other shit to do. I don't know. He's standing there. I don't know what to do. I just never bothered.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't even heard like video essays talk about him or anything. I know nothing about this character.
What? He's like one of my favorite characters in the game, and nobody knows about him.
I'm on my replay. I'll work on him. I've made this promise to you. I will work on him.
Oh man, dang it!
I'm sorry.
I didn't know. I didn't know that you knew nothing about him. Oh my god! Wow. I guess that's what happens when you have a game this big. Like everybody's bound to miss out some character in particular. You know.
Yeah.
So I guess let's go to one that you actually have done. Have you done Machinima?
Mishima?
Mishima? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't remember a whole lot about his gameplay other than like X. He helps with XP essentially, right?
Yeah, he helps with your like sidelined XP for people that are not equipped in the battle.
And that's helpful. It's really interesting because like he gets a lot of shit in the fandom, but I used to be like an avid like not an avid defender. I just kind of used to be like, he kind of gets a bad rap. And I feel like yes, and I really kind of like understand his character, but also like every time he talks, like I don't know why, because this wasn't my first playthrough, but like the more that I see him, the more that he talks to me, I'm just like, oh, you're annoying. Like shut up. Like I don't know. I've become the very thing I've sworn to destroy. I've slowly actually been annoyed by Mishima every time he shows up, which is weird because I didn't used to be. And it's a strange phenomenon that I can't explain.
Actually, I have a very similar arc to yours. I thought he was cool at first when I first saw him, and I kind of got at what he was story-wise. But on my most recent playthrough, I was like, I maxed out his story-wise, and I was like, wow, I kind of regret this. Like in particular, his shadow when he goes into the shadow world, and you have to change his shadow. But the thing that's kind of annoying is that they don't do anything. They just sit there and they go, well, you know, dude. Stop it, you have to change it yourself. And it's like, we haven't done that to like anybody else, like at all. We haven't done that to, I don't think there's a single point in time where we've gone up to a shadow, like Machinima's shadow, and said, oh yeah, you know, just change it yourself, dab, and then leaves the room, right? It's kind of strange, but yeah, I thought he was kind of annoying. Once I finished him story-wise, I was like, wow, that was kind of pathetic. I just wish he had something more to do in the game, you know? I feel like his arc could have been better well handled, but it's just kind of generic. So
I think he wants that too. And I feel like I kind of relate to him on that level. Like if I knew that a group of my friends were secret superheroes, I'd want to be in on it too, right? I have a hero complex.
True.
So and like the idea of being in a position where you're so scared but you know that like your fight or flight might take place but you want to do the right thing, I think that's really relatable too. Like all the time I have thoughts of like if I'm ever put in this scary situation, I'm hoping, begging that my good instincts will kick in and I'll do the right thing. Like if I were to ever get like robbed, for example, or something like that, that I could get out of that situation without making things worse, I guess. Like a bunch of hypothetical situations, and I feel like I relate to him on that level. And I think that him being essentially the guy who drives all these Mementos side quests while also kind of getting like way too in on it to a point where he becomes the villain himself, but then he has to address that for himself. I think that that's pretty good. I don't really think that there's a lot wrong with him. I just think that sometimes he's like too fucking annoying. I don't know. Like sometimes he says shit and I'm like, could you like shut the fuck up? Like why did you just say that to I don't know. Maybe that's like the point. But like he's such a strange character because he really annoys me, but I also like completely like get him. It's so weird.
I kind of wish, since we talk about him, I feel like he should have just sticked on the evil path and become kind of a villain. Like that would be cool. Like if it comes from, he starts off as trying to have this, fanboy complex, and then he becomes, what the very thing he sought to destroy. I think that would be an interesting take. But
Yeah.
they kind of end up, just saying, "Oh, you have to change for yourself," and he's like, "No, I'm being selfish." Like even in Royal, like when you get to Dr. Maruki, Mishima doesn't give you out the request anymore. It's all the other partners, you know, and
Yeah.
teammates, which I think is like a way of the developer saying, okay, yeah, we know you don't like this guy. We get it, guys. Come on, we'll get you to do the side quest somehow. Okay, so.
Yeah. I feel like the solution there should have just been to have him have like more likable dialogue, even like in the beginning, because it's Royal, they changed that shit anyway, so they just should have made him not say so many things that just suck, even though like it's part of his development that he does shitty things, but like he could have been less shitty.
Right.
But I don't know.
The next one up is the fortune teller lady. Did you do her by chance?
Chihaya? Um, yes. I don't remember a lot about it though. She's fine, I guess. I don't think that she had a lot of gameplay perks because I just don't remember. But maybe that's me needing to revisit her instead of like her actually being bad. I think like the whole thing of like, aha, like I read fortunes. Yeah, well, I can change people's perception. What? You actually have powers? Like I feel like that interaction is kind of interesting, but like I can't actually say a lot otherwise about her because I do remember hanging out with her and I think I got her close to maxing, but I didn't max her. But like I don't remember jack shit. I just not a lot happened there that really caught my attention, I guess.
So gameplay wise, she basically like can help you grow stronger with the. It's funny because the one that people the top three that always get recommended when it comes to the confidant list, it's always Chaya, if I'm saying that right, Dr. Maruki, and Kawaikawa, or Kawaii. I can't say these names. God damn it.
Kawakami?
Kamakami, yes. These three are always like at the top, and I didn't understand why the fortune teller lady would be there until I played with her. Okay, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, in terms of gameplay wise, she influences like the ability you get to be closer to other people. So if you want to be closer with somebody, you can go into there, and it's something that you upgrade, and then once you
Right.
do that, and then you can get closer with that person.
Yeah.
And I thought that was useful and good. Over story wise, it was like she was like a fortune teller in one of her villages that she was at, but she later something ended up happening, and then everybody in the village turned against her. And her whole story arc is like her working under this business that wants to sell shams of like holy waters and stuff. But the reason why not many people get to her in time is because like they you have to have like what it's like 100,000 yen or something like that, or more than that.
Yeah.
You have to use a lot of money just to unlock her,
Yeah.
which is
I
pretty
think she pays
crazy.
it back.
Yeah,
Oh.
she does pay it back by the at the end of the game. I remember at the end of the game specifically when it came to money, I had like more than like 2 million yen. It was insane, man. Um,
Yeah, yeah, when I played Royal, I was fucking rich.
yeah. So the fortune teller is good. But the last confidant that I did, at least, was Dr. Maruki. I love Dr. Maruki's confidant mostly because we've talked about him already, and he being such an interesting character. So yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
Maruki is pretty great. He also gives you SP maximum, which I think is good.
SP is good. I always run out of it.
Yeah, everybody does. Unless you have Izanagi no Okumi Picaro, then you can just, you end the fight and then you automatically get it restocked.
Wait, which one is that? Actually, just like text it to me because I need that motherfucker. I have one of the Picaros that just bombs people. But that's one of the problems about me losing SP lately. So
Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on. Yeah, Izanagi no Okumi Picaro is like straight up broken. Okay, so it's Izanagi no Okumi Picaro. That's his full name. It's there's two versions. There's Izanagi no Okami, but Izanagi no Okami Picaro has some stronger stuff. So
that
just use mystical truths and you'll clear about anything, literally anything. Especially in your early playthroughs of the game, He'll just like bomb everybody. I try not to use him too much during boss fights, but once you get to like Shido and the god, if you're having struggles with the god of control, then I'd suggest using him 100%.
Well, I'm shameless. I'm on my playthrough. I got to do whatever I damn well please.
Yeah.
I'll fucking abuse the shit out of this game.
Oh yeah, man, you can certainly abuse that. You can use Izanagi no Ogami Picaro and something Cairo Picaro. She's the one that shoots angelic angels and can fully. Oh, dude, Izanagi no Ogami Picaro is so broken. He has not only mystical truth, then you get an ability that lets you charge and focus yourself, doing double the damage. Then you get an ability where you can use him at any point in time, because at any point in time after a battle, you instantly recharge SP and HP. And then you get another ability, which is where you can heal everyone in the team and cure all status effects, right? He is stupidly broken in this game.
You're fucking god, dude. My man.
Yep. So if you ever were like, hey, I'm having some troubles here, don't worry. Izanagi no Okami Picaro's got your back.
Alright, well, I appreciate the advice. I will be using that. I also have to talk to the politician, apparently.
He's good. He's got a good story. Okay, he doesn't have great gameplay, but he has a good story. It's classic. Anyway, oh well. My dreams mean nothing.
I mean, you're convincing me. I'm doing what you want. I mean, this is a positive in my eyes.
Let me see. What are other things that we can... Because the Confidants are pretty much all done. I had some issues. No, not really. I liked Akechi's Confidant. I like the exploding enemies. Dude, I love the show times in this game. They're so great.
Oh, yeah. I love the one between On and Morgana. That was like my favorite.
Yeah,
That
right.
was like the first one.
He goes into the, like, flower beds and then, like, pulls out machine guns. My favorite one is the one between a Joker and Akechi. I think that one's great, man.
Yeah. That one and Joker and Yoshizawa is good too.
Yeah. So yeah.
I love them all though. They're just also like fucking like you know the one with like Makoto and Ryuji where like there's this part where he like crushes a soda can and
Yeah.
then he like bows like super awkwardly. Like when I was watching that with my girlfriend was visiting a while ago and we were watching that at some point because I was playing it or she was playing it or something. And we both kind of just like looked at each other and we're like, what the fuck was that? Like,
Dude.
I don't know, but it was great.
I equipped Ryuji and Makoto often, so I'd see that all the time, and every time I'd skip it, it'd just be like, shh, and then it was like him bowing to her, and I was like, dude, that's sick. I don't care what anybody says. Even the dialogue changes time to time, which I think is great. So,
Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, that's all the notes that I have on Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Overall, great game. It's in one of my top 5 games. It's not as high as Hellblade, Runner, and Nightcall, but they're certainly up there.
When you're finished with this, speaking of Hellblade, I wanted to direct your attention there, but obviously, like, finish up what you're saying.
Oh yeah. So anyway, Persona 5 Royal, good game. It's one of the few AAA games that I've played and went, oh yeah, this is great. You know?
Yeah.
I usually don't have a lot of faith in AAA games, especially nowadays. It seems like double A games and indies are actually where the real quality's at when it comes to video games. Now, I don't say that to like be a skeptic or anything. I think there are some good things about AAA gaming, but like the problem with AAA gaming is that they always get too ambitious. They're like, we gotta have this and this and this and that and this, and it's like they put so much into the game where like it doesn't have any clear identity, it has no clear personality. I guess that's why I like Hi-Fi Rush so much, is because like it knows that it's like a $30 game and knows that it's not gonna be cramming everything as possible, but every little detail that they make and every decision that they choose, it's for a certain reason for the overall game's quality. And I feel like Persona 5 Royal is one of those rare few incidences where they can do nearly everything and actually end up making it pretty good, you know? So
Yeah. I feel like I can vibe with that. Especially, there's a lot of like, okay, we're releasing this game. By the way, it's completely unfinished. And you'll have to spend a shit ton of money for other things that we're offering. And we are going to try and milk as much money out of you as possible instead of like trying to create a finished product that is good at being what it is. Instead, we're going to try and conform to what everyone else is doing, even if it doesn't fit what this game is specifically. And I think that that's a problem. But I wouldn't lie if I get excited over some of those AAA titles, and sometimes I'm maybe a little bit too lenient on them. Like I'm really excited for Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man, Final Fantasy 16, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm super excited for all those. But I don't think I'll be too disappointed unless like Final Fantasy and Tears of the Kingdom are really bad, but I'll deal with it.